Welcome to Getting Creative, a spotlight on the people who are taking full advantage of the employment, recreational, and artistic opportunities that make Iowa's creative corridor one of the best places in the world to live. I'm Dennis Green. Sometimes people have to move away to discover that Iowa's creative corridor is one of the best places in the world to live, work, and play. My guest today didn't have to leave to realize that living here could feed both his economic and his artistic occupations. Denny Redmond is a Cedar Rapids native who has two very different degrees from Coe College. More about that later. He's a principal with Latta Harris, an accountant and consultant firm. Maybe not the first job you think of when you consider artistic occupations, unless you need some creative tax deductions. But off the clock, he keeps busy as a working musician, jazz pianist, and composer. He plays with Brass Transit Authority, CR Jazz, as well as working as a solo pianist and leading his own combos. He's active as an audience member too and a volunteer. He's a past board member and president of Orchestra Iowa, Red Cedar Chamber Music. He's been on the board of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Hawkeye Fly Fishing Association, and many others. And he's hosting us today in his living room, right next to the piano where he does most of his work, at least his work that doesn't involve debits and credits. Denny, thanks for joining us on Getting Creative.
It's my pleasure.
Tell me how you got started playing the piano.
Oh, well, I was in fourth grade, and my mom asked if I wanted to take piano lessons, so I took lessons for a year from a nun there and had the typical keep your hands rounded and do the beginning books and pretty boring stuff. Got done and said, no, I don't think I want to keep it up. And she said, well, if you could play popular music, would you keep playing? And I said, well, yeah, I'll try it. And so she hired a guy from Hilperners named Al Erickson, who also John Schultz in town studied with. Al would come to the house at 7:30 in the morning, give me a piano lesson, and then drive me to school. When I was a senior in high school, our piano lessons were usually with a lid down, sitting in two chairs, and he'd make me spell scales and chords and, F sharp harmonic minor scale and have to think of it in my head and all that. It gave me a really strong grounding in theory and harmony and popular music, and just kept doing that, and that's what got me playing in the bands in high school. Started playing when I was about 15 with a band very similar to BTA now, and picked up trombone at the same time to play the bone parts of the Chicago tunes. We did that for 3 years, playing off and on, and then my senior year at Regis, I auditioned and took Mike Bodeker's spot with the Coe Jazz Band and played keyboards with him the last semester of my senior year in high school and applied and really enjoyed working with Jerry Owen and respected him a lot and wanted to learn from him at that point. Plus I was playing in bands and wanted to keep playing and stay in Cedar Rapids, and it was a natural, and so I became a music major there. And Jerry at the time, I think around my sophomore year, started the theory composition major, which was perfect for me because I'm not really a classical player at all. I graduated from Coe in 76 with my theory and composition major. At the time I was playing in a band called Webster John, and I had spent a month in LA in 76, January of 76, and didn't really want to move to LA, had no desire to move to New York, liked Cedar Rapids, had a reason to stay, and decided to stay. And I ended up going to job service, getting a job as a messenger at the old Merchants National Bank, working in the mailroom, delivering mail, and then worked my way up into a charge card position, going out and setting merchants up to accept MasterCard Visa. And at the time I was writing some jingles and got hired by an ad agency with the idea that I'd be writing jingles for them, and it didn't quite work out that way. And went back to the bank on a temporary basis, went back to job service. They said, "You want to work for the IRS?" And I said, "No." And then they told me what it paid, and I said, "Okay." Yeah, it paid more than the bank. And I took the civil service exam, and my music degree opened the doors. It gave me more points. And I got an interview, and I was one of two guys hired for what was called an audit aid position, where we'd go out and help the agents.
You also are an audience member. You've been a board member for Orchestra Iowa, Red Cedar Chamber. You spent a lot of time in the audience. as well. What are some of the things that you most enjoy about seeing other people perform here in the corridor?
Well, it's the people in the corridor, and it's the musicians who I know more than the other artists, are so talented. And every time you hear somebody, you learn something. And I know when somebody comes to one of the gigs I play and supports me or the band I'm in, I really appreciate it. And there's a lot of players in town that I really like to listen to. And when there's a chance to hear them, I'll go listen to them and try to support them and keep the live music going. I mean, that's really, really what it's all about. When I was in high school and Chicago would come out with a new album, we would learn the tunes that we liked. And a number of times we picked the tunes before they became hits. It was just with our taste. And I do remember when BTA first played, we opened the set with Saturday in the Park, that piano lick. Mm-hmm. And people jumped up and started singing along, and I'm thinking, wow, this hasn't happened the last time I played jazz. You know? And it's a whole different thing. And our demographic are people our age. You know, and I think there's some younger people that hang with us that like us. One, there's not many bands playing this style of music. So we get a good audience, and the people that like this music will follow us to a degree. And it's complicated music, and you got to have the players, and you got to do it for the love of the music, because when you get 9 guys on stage in a bar, it's pretty slim pickings at the end of the night.
Yeah, the tip jar has to
really
go
the tip jar's got to go a long way, yeah.
Well, and you're right about the quality of the player, because I've heard dozens of garage bands play these songs over the years, but there is a difference when you have the right arrangements and the right players to play the arrangements. Yeah. What else is different about playing this music out now as opposed to when you were in your teens and 20s?
Oh, 1 o'clock is a lot later than it used to be. And we love 8 to 12. We like 9 to 12 even better. One, we're more mature in our playing. And right now, and it's one of the criteria I like about any band I'm playing in, I don't like playing with prima donnas, who's somebody who has to always be playing. I like people who know when to play or not play. And you know, for me, I'm as guilty as that as anybody. You know, I like to play, and I've got to force myself to back off. And that when there's a trombone solo, a number of times I quit playing. Pat Smith's covering the changes behind him, and the horn solos, unless they're improvised, they're all written out anyway. So they don't need the changes to follow anything. Pat's just keeping that pad going. And if I back out, it helps that horn player sound better and is more emphasized. Or say in that break and Make Me Smile when all of the horns are playing. I have no reason to really be playing at all. I don't add anything at that point. Actually, I would probably subtract by mudding it up a little bit. So it's just thinking and listening and trying to be a little more mature in your playing.
So would it be fair to say that you found the corridor to be a place where you can be more creative, more freely?
Yeah, when I was playing full time with Source, we probably played a third to 40% original tunes. Our drummer was a prolific writer, really fine writer. Jeff Dowd, who I mentioned earlier, guitar player, wrote. We did a few of my tunes. Our percussionist wrote a couple tunes, and people got to learn them and like them. You know, because it's interesting. This is another concept about art and the issue of how do you introduce something new. We have this discussion with new music for the symphony all the time. How do we get the audience to accept new music? Well, people like what they know. And so how do you know a new piece of music? Say Adele's 25. Because every time you walk around the corner, you hear it. And you know, the popular music on the radio, on TV, it's played a number of times, and you hear it over and over and over again, and you get to know it and recognize it. And when you recognize it, you like it better. So with Source, we would play enough in the bars and mix up the originals with the cover tunes enough that people would start to like the tunes that we wrote. And we found that a little bit with Midnight Passage when I was playing with Tim Feldkamp. Some of our tunes, people would ask for them. They'd like them and want to hear them. And with the symphony, our job is to educate the audience a bit about a new piece of work. If we can get the composer in to talk about it, play some excerpts before we play the full piece, so that they know what to listen for and have a little bit of ownership. And because of that, they'll like it better.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And we've got this beautiful piano here right behind us in your living room. There's no way I'm going to let you escape without playing a little bit. So
Okay.
Can we play a little?
Sure. Well, as everybody knows, 4/15 is April 15th, and April 15th is the last day of tax season. And there's nothing like that feeling of walking out of the office knowing you prepared your last return for quite a while and walking into a nice spring day in the middle of April and having that freedom to do whatever you want. And that's really what the tune's all about.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Thanks again for being on Getting Creative, Denny.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Catch Denny bringing back the music of Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and all the other great horn bands with Brass Transit Authority online at btacr.com. Here in Iowa's Creative Corridor, we strive to live more than the average life. Visit creativecorridor.co to meet more fascinating people like Denny and share your own stories about getting creative.